This is the chilling case of Emily Vargas, a quiet 22-year-old who vanished from a crowded house party without anyone noticing. She made 50 desperate phone calls in her final hour, and then disappeared forever. No one saw her leave. No one heard her scream. Weeks later, a severed finger, a burned phone, and a cryptic photograph would turn this missing person case into one of the most haunting unsolved crimes of the decade. Was it her ex-boyfriend Tyler Greene, the secretive party host Derek Wallace, or the mysterious man in the shadows Joel Santoro, who vanished the same night? You're watching Fatal Party. She made 50 phone calls before disappearing forever. This is a case full of lies, fear, and unanswered questions, and by the end, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew. If you love true crime that dives deep into the unknown, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay active so you never miss a new story. Let's get into it. Emily Vargas had never been the type to draw attention. Quiet, observant, and naturally reserved, she had spent most of her life avoiding the spotlight. But something changed after she moved to Brookfield. Friends from her hometown said she seemed restless, even reckless. The breakup with her longtime boyfriend had shaken her deeply, and moving to a new city alone was her way of starting over. That's why her sudden appearance at a crowded house party full of strangers was so out of character. She didn't know the host personally. She hadn't even been invited. She found the party through a mutual connection on social media, someone she'd only met once at a local cafe. Yet, that Friday night, she arrived without hesitation. The house was loud and chaotic, music thumping through the walls, red plastic cups scattered on the front porch, laughter spilling from every room. Emily stood out immediately, not because she was loud, but because she wasn't. Her silver dress glimmered under the porch lights, and her eyes kept darting around, as if she was scanning the crowd for something or someone. A few guests would later recall her looking lost or nervous, while others remembered her simply standing near the kitchen, sipping from a cup and checking her phone every few minutes. Phone records would later confirm what no one saw. Happening in real time, Emily began calling people obsessively between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock a.m. She made 50 calls in that single hour. The majority were to her ex-boyfriend, but there were also strange numbers, some untraceable, some belonging to prepaid phones with no names attached. The calls were short. Some lasted only seconds. Others didn't even connect. The most chilling detail: the final call at 1:58 a.m. was answered, but lasted only 7 seconds. No one knows who was on the other end. The atmosphere in the house was blurring into drunken chaos by then. Loud voices, flashes from phone cameras, doors opening and closing. No one noticed Emily slipping away, if she even did. There were no witnesses to her leaving, no camera footage to confirm it. The only clue was the final ping from her cell phone, recorded 8 minutes after her last call. It placed her 15 minutes away, near a wooded park known for its hiking trails and quiet. A place no one goes at night. By the next morning, Emily's bed was still neatly made. Her roommate realized she hadn't returned and called the police. At first, it seemed like a typical case of a young woman vanishing after a night out. But when detectives pulled the phone records and saw the call log, they knew something far more disturbing had happened. The house on Willow Creek Lane looked like any other suburban home to stories: white siding, trimmed hedges, and a quiet backyard that backed up to a line of thick trees. But for investigators, it was the last known location of Emily Vargas, and every corner of it held the potential for answers. The party that night had hosted nearly 40 people, most of them friends of friends who came and went freely. No official guest list existed, and the party's host, Derek Wallace, was far from cooperative in the beginning. A self-styled nightlife promoter with a reputation for throwing chaotic gatherings, Derek claimed he barely noticed Emily at all. He said she came alone, had a drink or two, and was probably just looking for someone to talk to. When questioned further, Derek's story began to shift. At first, he denied knowing Emily. Then he admitted he had maybe seen her around before. Other guests painted a murkier picture. A few recalled seeing Emily in the kitchen, standing uncomfortably close to a man in a black hoodie who appeared to be arguing with her. Another person remembered her trying to leave through the side gate sometime after 1 a.m., but being stopped by two men who said it was safer to wait until morning. These observations, though vague and unconfirmed, hinted at a troubling atmosphere, one that didn't match the carefree party vibe described by Derek. Detectives scoured the house 2 days after Emily was reported missing. It had already been cleaned almost too thoroughly. Trash had been removed, carpets vacuumed, surfaces wiped down with disinfectant. Nothing seemed obviously out of place, but what stood out was the lack of surveillance footage. Derek had cameras on the front door and in the hallway leading to the backyard. Oddly, both systems had been turned off at 11:47 p.m., just over an hour after Emily arrived. Derek blamed a power surge caused by the loudspeakers drawing too much energy. Yet all the lights, music equipment, and even the fridge remained unaffected. Even more unsettling was what police didn't find any trace of Emily's belongings. No purse, no ID, no phone. It was as if she had evaporated from the house without leaving a single fingerprint. Investigators questioned guests one by one, but no one saw her leave. Most assumed she had left earlier, slipped out without saying goodbye, maybe called a rideshare, but no Uber or Lyft had been requested from that address under her name. That night, then the case took a turn. Investigators reviewed cell tower data and found that Emily's phone had moved away from the house after 2 o'clock am traveling east, then stopping near a dark park on the edge of town. But no one knew how she got there. As investigators dug deeper, the focus shifted to the people Emily had been calling during her final hour, especially her ex-boyfriend, Tyler Greene. Tyler lived just 10 miles from the party house and had dated Emily for nearly 4 years. Their breakup, by all accounts, had been messy. Friends described him as possessive, quick-tempered, and unwilling to accept that their relationship was over. But when police brought Tyler in for questioning, he appeared calm, almost detached. He insisted he hadn't spoken to Emily in weeks and claimed he had changed his number shortly after their breakup. He said he never got any calls from her that night, but phone records told a different story. Emily had called one number 30 times between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m., and though that number no longer belonged to Tyler, investigators soon found a prepaid burner phone hidden in his apartment. The phone had been registered under a fake name and had only been used a handful of times. On it were 2 missed calls from Emily, logged just minutes before her disappearance. When asked to explain the phone, Tyler claimed he had bought it to avoid harassment from friends after the breakup. He insisted he hadn't given the number to Emily and couldn't explain how she had gotten it. The investigation took another strange turn when a tip came through the department's anonymous hotline. A digitally altered voice left a message. "She wasn't supposed to be there. Check your photos. He's in the background." Detectives began combing through every photo and video posted on social media from the party that night. Most were blurry, casual clips showing dancing, drinking, and flashes of chaos. But one photo posted to a private Instagram story caught their attention. In the corner of the frame, almost hidden by shadows, was the side profile of a man standing close to Emily around midnight. The image was grainy, but facial recognition technology confirmed his identity: Joel Santoro, a 36-year-old former private security contractor who had once been investigated for assault in another state. He had no known ties to the party host or any of the guests. In fact, no one could explain how or why he had shown up that night. When police searched for Joel, they found his apartment abandoned, his car missing, and no recent financial activity on his accounts. But in a nearby dumpster, they found something chilling: a small trash bag containing a woman's silver bracelet, engraved with a single letter, E. The discovery confirmed what detectives had feared. Emily hadn't just walked away. Someone had taken steps to make sure she vanished without a trace. Nearly 2 months after Emily's disappearance, just as the trail seemed to be going cold, a local hiker stumbled upon a disturbing scene near the Des Plaines River. Wedged between two large rocks at the water's edge was a black trash bag, partially torn open. Inside were 3 items: a single black stiletto heel, a badly burned cell phone, and something far more horrifying: a severed human finger wearing a silver ring. Investigators rushed to the scene and quickly sealed off the area. Forensics confirmed what Emily's family had feared: the finger belonged to her. The ring was one she had worn often, engraved with the words, "Keep going," a quiet message of resilience she had gifted herself during college. The burned cell phone was barely intact. Most of its internal components had melted, and the SIM card had been destroyed by heat and moisture. Attempts to recover data failed. Investigators were left with a few fragments of information, partial timestamps, a blurred contact list, and a few photos too damaged to recognize. Still, the presence of the phone confirmed that someone had tried to destroy any trace of communication from that night. The shoe, too, matched the pair Emily had been wearing to the party. Witnesses remembered the heels, noting how they sparkled under the party lights, but only one had been found. The other, like Emily, was still missing. The area was searched thoroughly for days, with divers and cadaver dogs scouring the riverbanks, but no additional evidence was recovered. Whoever had left the bag there had chosen the spot carefully. The current was strong, the rocks dense, and it was a place rarely visited at night. It was only by chance that the hiker had taken that path. Back at the station, the case shifted from a missing person to something darker. Still, the lack of a body meant Emily's legal status remained uncertain. No one had been charged, and without more physical evidence, the case stood on shaky ground. Joel Santoro, the mystery man from the party, remained missing. Derek Wallace had since left town, moving to Arizona and refusing further cooperation. Tyler Greene, though still under suspicion, now had legal representation and refused to speak to investigators without his attorney present. Then, just as media attention began to fade, an envelope arrived at the Brookfield Police Department. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a Polaroid photograph, grainy, dark, and disturbing. It showed a woman tied to a chair in a dimly lit room. Her face was hard to make out, but her build, her hair, and a faint scar on her hand all resembled Emily. On the back of the photo was a handwritten note: she was at the wrong party. The photograph, sent to the Brookfield Police Department, reignited a wave of fear and speculation. Investigators scrutinized every inch of the grainy Polaroid. The lighting was dim, and the image quality was poor, but one detail stood out: a Small scar just below the left thumb of the woman in the photo. Emily had once posted about that scar on social media, explaining it came from a childhood fall on a metal fence. For her family, that scar was confirmation, but legally, it wasn't enough. Without a clear facial ID, fingerprints, or location data, the photo couldn't be verified. Experts were brought in to enhance the image, but the results were inconclusive. The background revealed almost nothing: a single wooden chair, a bare wall, and the edge of what looked like a heating pipe. Police traced the envelope's postmark to a sorting facility to towns over, but no security footage was available. The sender had left no fingerprints, no DNA, no usable forensic trail. It was a dead end, another cruel twist in a case already full of shadows. Still, it changed the narrative. Now, there was reason to believe Emily might still be alive, possibly being held somewhere against her will. This theory spurred the formation of a task force dedicated solely to her case. They revisited old leads, re-interviewed guests from the party, and explored the theory that Emily had witnessed something she shouldn't have that night, something worth silencing her over. Searches were conducted in abandoned warehouses, isolated cabins, and vacant properties near the Des Plaines River. Hundreds of tips came in, most of them false alarms. Psychics reached out. Online sleuths flooded forums with theories. None led to Emily. Tyler Greene moved to a different state and fell completely off social media. Derek Wallace rebranded himself under a new name and began hosting events again, this time out of state. Joel Santoro remained the central mystery. No bank records, no phone use, no verified sightings. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, along with the truth. Years passed, and eventually, the media moved on. The community of Brookfield tried to forget, but Emily's family never did. They held yearly vigils by the river. They kept the silver ring, the burned phone, and the shoe as grim reminders. The official case remains open, but with no new leads. It sits frozen in time, haunted by unanswered calls and a photo that might be a cry for help, or a final taunt from someone who knows exactly what happened. Emily Vargas remains missing, her fate hidden in silence, her story unfinished.